anyone that is calling in on an external line, if you have the ability to put yourself on mute, I would greatly appreciate it. There's a little bit of background noise. We have a few minutes yet before we get started, but we will try to get started right around 11 o'clock. Thank you.
Hello?
Come in, Joe.
Hey. Punctuality.
Got a seat for you here.
Thank you. Boy, did we have a good meeting.
Good.
Got several.
Thank you, everyone. It looks like it is 11:01, so we will go ahead and get started. I just want to mention, if you do not currently have yourself on mute, please go ahead and put yourself on mute. And then if you're calling in on a separate line or not through Teams, at the end of this, you may have to press *6 on your handheld device to take yourself back off of mute if you have questions at the end. Can everybody see the PowerPoint presentation? Perfect.
Yep. Yeah, Jennifer, you're good.
Thank you so much, Rick. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I do want to mention that this meeting will be recorded and then posted to our website for future reference. There will be time provided at the end of this presentation for questions. If you have questions during the presentation, I ask that you please enter it in the chat, and we will come back to that towards the end. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Snyder, and I am the Grants and Resource Manager with the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. Many of you may already be familiar with me, as I've been involved with this grant program for quite some time now, since essentially the beginning of the program. So you may already be very familiar with my name or even my voice. Okay, let's get started. The purpose of this meeting is to provide an overview of the 23-24 Veterans Trust Fund grant opportunity and application process. As you are aware, the opportunity was announced last week, and the information was emailed to multiple contacts as well as posted to our website. The purpose of the Veterans Trust Fund grant is for new, innovative, and/or expanded programs or services that increase or improve services to veterans in their county, region, or across the Commonwealth. Just to give a little bit of history, the Veterans Trust Fund is funded solely by donations from generous Pennsylvanians who voluntarily donate when applying for or renewing their driver's license, photo IDs, motor vehicle registration, the purchase of the Honoring Our Veterans Standard and motorcycle license plate, the purchase of the Honoring Our Women Veterans Standard license plate, or private donations. It's important to note that these donations are the driving force behind how much annual funding is allocated for the Veterans Trust Fund grant. For more information on donations, where to donate, how to donate, please visit our website. And there is also a link in the PowerPoint presentation regarding where donations can be made. Who is eligible to apply? For those that are familiar with this grant opportunity, we break the eligible applicants into two categories. The first category consists of veteran service organizations that hold a 501c19 status under the Internal Revenue Code, or nonprofit organizations with a mission of serving Pennsylvania veterans that are granted a 501c3 status under the Internal Revenue Code. It's important to note that a nonprofit organization does not need to be a veteran-only organization. However, at least one of the organization's primary objectives must be to serve Pennsylvania veterans or their families. Details to justify and support this program or service must be clear and evident in the application. And the grant funding can only be used to support Pennsylvania veterans and their families. It's also important to note for this applicant type that nonprofit and VSOs must both provide a copy of the IRS determination letter. That has to be included with the grant package. If that's not included, the application will be deemed incomplete. The other category of eligible applicants includes county directors of Veterans Affairs or the PA Association of County Directors of Veterans Affairs. Each year, priority areas are determined, and those are the focus areas for the application. Prior to releasing a grant opportunity, the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs gathers information from a variety of sources regarding how we determine what the priority areas will be for the Veterans Trust Fund grant. DMVA staff rely on feedback gathered from the PA Vet Connect program, which is focused on regional community-based outreach. DMVA also relies on feedback from the veteran service organizations. We trust the feedback collected from the various community partners that we have formed relationships with. We also leverage the information collected in reports from current and previous VTF grant winners, and we listen to our service members, veterans, and their families as we engage with them every day. These are just a few of the sources that we utilize to help inform the Adjutant General as to the status of our military family throughout the Commonwealth. For the VSO and nonprofit organizations, the priority areas for this grant cycle are transportation services, food insecurity, housing insecurity, behavioral health, mental health, or suicide prevention initiatives, and legal assistance. And as you can see on this slide, there is a narrative regarding each of those that is also included in the grant package. So those details can be found there. If you have additional questions regarding those, you can certainly reach out to us on the side and we can get additional information out to you if needed. For the County Directors of Veterans Affairs or PA Association of County Directors of Veterans Affairs, the priority area is Veteran Outreach Initiatives. How much can be requested? There is no minimum amount for grant awards. However, there are maximum amounts. The VSO organizations and nonprofit organizations can request up to $40,000. County Directors of Veterans Affairs and the Pennsylvania Association of County Directors of Veterans Affairs can request up to $15,000 per eligible county. If you have questions regarding, joint county applications and details on that, please reach out to me and I can provide additional guidance. It's important to note that there is no match requirement for this grant, although it is preferred as it will allow you to stretch the money further and reach a larger number of veterans. There are a few items that are ineligible requests. This, again, is all of this information on these slides can be found in the grant package. Requests for new construction projects are not eligible. You can request funding to go towards minor renovations and repairs to an existing project, but of course that needs to be justified and supported in the grant request. You cannot use the funding to purchase vehicles. And the administrative personnel costs, those are costs that are in support of your day-to-day operations. That cannot exceed 10% of the requested dollar amount. So 10% of your overall requested grant amount. So those are three limitations. And if those are requested on the application, it unfortunately will be deemed ineligible. Where to find the grant package. And actually, I would like to back up real quick to the priority areas. I apologize. I thought of a note that I wanted to, and I will go back. Some of you may recall it last year for the priority areas. We only allowed you to select one area on the application. The first page of the application is the cover page. It's where you will fill out all of the organization information, the requested dollar amount, and where you will select the priority area. This year, we have changed it back to you can select multiple priority areas. But please note, if you do select more than one priority area, those details must be provided in the application to justify and support all of the priority areas that are selected. One additional item that I want to mention in the ineligible section is if you have an existing Veterans Trust Fund grant from a previous year, whether it be 21, 22, those funds must be spent by May 31st of 2024 in order for your organization to be eligible for this new grant opportunity. If you have an existing grant and you have challenges with the expenditures, you think you may need an extension, please do not submit a grant application under this. You may not have two open grants at the same time. So that would be a conversation that you can certainly reach out to us on the side. We can discuss that with you, but all funds must be spent by May 31st. If you have an existing grant and you are certain those funds will be spent, please, by all means, go ahead and submit an application under this opportunity. That is fine. But if you have concerns that it will not be, you would want to reach out to us and we can discuss that. Where to find the grant package? The grant package, if you do not already have a copy, can be found at the Veterans Trust Fund website. All of the information is posted to the website, including general information about the fund, as well as additional information regarding the grant and the grant package. In the grant package, you will notice there are several important documents. The first document contains key dates. Those are important dates to include the due date, the performance period dates, and so forth. The next document is a notice of funding announcement. This is a brief overview of the grant opportunity and the priority areas, along with how and where to submit the application. Following that is the grant guidelines. This is the document that provides all of the details pertaining to the grant, additional information on the priorities, additional information on the process, all of the grant specific information that you will need in order to obtain, complete, and submit your application. And then the last 5 pages of this grant package is the actual application itself. Please note that the fiscal year 22 application was still out on our website. So make sure the application you have is 23-24. It has to have the 23-24 heading, or it is not the correct year. Please do not submit the 22 application or a prior year application. If you held on to a copy, please do not submit a prior year, as they do change from year to year. It must be the 23-24 application. What you should submit. The submitted document should contain all 5 pages of the grant application. Please do not return the entire grant package, including the key date page, the notice of funding announcement. We do not need that information. We only need the actual grant application. On the grant application, there are 2 pages regarding attachments and narratives. One called the organizational summary, another program narrative. In each of these, there are specific fields and questions that you should provide details on, such as describing the organization's history, the purpose for which your organization was created, year of inception, mission, etc. Please make sure as you read through the application, you are clearly answering all of those items in detail to support and justify the purpose of the organization and your goals and mission. Again, if you are a nonprofit or a VSO organization, you must include a copy of the 501c3 or 501c19 IRS letter. Letters of support, commitment, or participation for partnering agencies or organizations may be included. They are not required, but they most certainly can be included. And those do not count towards the 10-page maximum. You'll see as you read through the guidelines, there's a section regarding not to exceed more than 10 pages. That does not include the required IRS letter and those supporting documents. Charitable organizations must submit the minimum number of documents necessary to establish that serving Pennsylvania veterans or their families is one of the organization's primary objectives, and that programs or services are to benefit Pennsylvania veterans or their families. Charitable organizations permitted by law to evaluate and provide mental health care to patients must provide credentials verifying approval of such service. Please ensure that the grant application is signed. It must contain the signature and printed name, rank, and title of the most senior authorized official representing the organization. Telephone numbers and email addresses must be provided for the senior authorized official signing the grant application, as well as the day-to-day point of contact for program and financial administration. The grant has an evaluation process. Grant proposals will be reviewed and scored by an appointed grant committee. It's important to note that I am not a member of the scoring committee. I've had a lot of people ask me that. Am I a member? Can I give out additional information? I am not, nor do I decide who sits on the scoring committee. If you have additional questions about that process, please reach out to us on the side. We can give some additional details about that grant scoring process. All of the grant recipients must comply with the grant requirements. So any information listed in the grant guidelines must be followed by the grant applicant. And if you have questions about that, certainly reach out to us, send an email to the resource account, and somebody will be in contact with you. What is the award process? Applicants will receive notice via email of the application status. Anyone who is awarded a grant or is awarded a potential grant must sign and return a grant agreement. The grant agreement will include the Commonwealth standard terms and conditions and will cover important details relative to the grant. The effective date of the grant agreement will be the date the last signature is affixed by the Commonwealth. There is a pretty lengthy amount of time that will take place between when the grant recipient signs the grant agreement and when the grant agreement is fully executed. So please note that costs incurred by the grantee after the period of performance begins, which every year is June 1st. Any costs prior to the full execution of the agreement. So as an example, the grant begins on June 1st, but the agreement may not be fully executed until June 30th. Any costs that you incur prior to June 30th, when that agreement is fully executed, are at the sole risk of the grantee. If by some chance the grant agreement is delayed, doesn't get executed for any reason, you decide, I no longer want to accept this award, any costs prior to a fully executed agreement are at the risk of the grantee. And then the period of performance for this agreement for this grant is dependent upon the selection made on the cover page of the application. You have the ability to select a 12, 18, or 24-month performance period. That means you have those number of months to spend the funds. If you select 18 or 24, it's important to know that that will then disqualify you from being able to apply. Sorry about that. That will disqualify you from being able to apply for next year's grant, because as I mentioned earlier, you may not have 2 open grant cycles at one time. So you would have to, if your intention is to apply every year or under every grant opportunity, 18 and 24 months would not allow you to do that. But we do allow a longer performance period for those organizations that you have a service or a program that is quite lengthy, you need more time, you want to have ample time to provide the service and spend the funding. You can select 12, 18, or 24 months. And that is on the cover page of the application. So when you begin the application, when you begin completing the application, you'll see that on page 1, you can select right on there the project period months. So that's what that means. That is how long you will have to complete your project and spend the funds. What is the payment process? Payments are scheduled after the grant agreement is fully executed. Upon execution of the agreement, applicants are sent a copy for your files, and you're provided with an estimated pay date. One prerequisite in order for any applicant to receive funding through the Commonwealth is that you must obtain a vendor number. This is free, and there's information in this slide as well as in the grant package to provide details on how and where you go to register online. You do not need to have a vendor number when your application is submitted, but you are encouraged to start that process right away, because it can take some time to obtain that vendor number. If you are selected to receive an award, you will have to obtain a vendor number before any funds can be dispersed. And the Commonwealth also requires participants to receive funding electronically. So part of the process of obtaining the vendor number, you can also have banking information entered into the vendor portal so that payments can be sent electronically. And there's additional guidance in the grant guidelines on that as well. All grant recipients are required to submit quarterly reports, and a report template will be provided. And there is also an audit requirement for any grant recipient. For an organization that receives awards less than $40,000 for nonprofits or VSOs, or less than $15,000 for county directors of Veterans Affairs, you are required to submit a compiled financial statement. Awards equal to the maximum 40,000 or equal to 15,000 are required to submit a final audit performed by a certified public accountant. The cost of obtaining a compiled financial statement or conducting a project audit is an allowable expense to be paid with the grant funds. How to apply. It's strongly preferred that all applications are submitted via email to the Veterans Trust Fund resource account. The email is ra-mv-vettrustfund@pa.gov. We do accept paper copies, and they should be delivered to the address listed in the slide as well as in the grant guidelines. But the preferred method is via email. I do want to point out that this may be the last year for paper applications, both via email or mailed. We are in the process of onboarding an online grant system that would require electronic submissions. So there will be more to come on that. That would not take effect until the next year grant cycle, but we will have more information on that as we know more. And the most important piece is what our applications do. Applications are due by 2:00 p.m. on Wednesday, November 8th. Late applications will not be considered, and you certainly can submit them as soon as possible. You do not need to wait until the 8th or the week of the 8th. We will take submissions starting now all the way up to the 8th, but no late applications after 2 p.m. will be considered. That is all of the information that I have to provide, but I'm certain there are questions. So I want to open up a time now for those who have questions to ask, or if you have, if there's anything that I didn't cover that you were concerned about or have questions on, please share those questions with us now. And I do have John, if you want to share the questions, we can certainly work through those.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jen. So we had 4 great questions come in through the chat, and I'm going to go through those first. So first question, will we have access to the PowerPoint presentation after the meeting?
Yes, you will. We will be posting it to our website, and I can share it to the members that joined on the meeting as well.
Okay, next question. Last year, our organization applied under the priority of employment and education. Has that priority been blended into one of the others?
If the employment and education service is directly connected to one of the current initiatives, and you can support and justify that, you will certainly still can submit an application, but we do not have that specific priority area this year. So they would have to have a connection to one of the other priority areas. As I mentioned, they do change from year to year. So if it's, if there is not a direct connection there, then unfortunately not. But, if you have a connection or you do also provide one of the other priority services, you certainly are encouraged to apply.
So that connects to the next question here. Will projects that fall outside of the priority areas be automatically disallowed?
Yes, if you have a project that is not connected to one of those priority areas, it is not an eligible application. It has to fall under one of those priority areas for this year.
Okay, and the last question that I'm tracking here is, we are currently under construction, but expected to open in spring 2024. Are we ineligible until next cycle?
You are not ineligible as long as you can support that you are certain things will be up and running, how you could justify and confirm that that will take place. So that would be really in how you address that in the application itself, providing those details that you are under construction, what the anticipated timeline is for completion, how that could potentially impact the overall services and outcomes. You can certainly apply. And then, as you go through that process, if you have questions as you work through that, you can reach out separately and we can, assist with any other questions you may have. It doesn't make you ineligible to apply, but you would have to have support and justification in the application to show that you are confident that things will be up and running during the grant period. Because as I mentioned, you can select 12, 18, or 24 months. But just as an example, the timeline, if you select 12 months, runs from June 1st of 2024 through May 31st of 2025, just to give a good idea of what the timeline would be for a one-year grant.
Jen, we did have a few more questions pop up, so I'm going to go ahead and read those. Question, can a VFW with the 501c4 apply for one of these grants?
No, C4s are not accepted. You would have to have the 501c3 status.
Okay, and Jen, if you would please just reiterate how much funds will be available in this cycle.
Certainly, for nonprofit and VSO organizations, the requested amount can be up to $40,000. And for county directors, you can request up to $15,000. And are you asking the total overall or just per applicant type? Just I wanted to clarify that.
The question was how much funds are given out each grant period in total from the VTF?
Okay. That is actually a variable. As I mentioned earlier in the very beginning of the presentation, the Veterans Trust Fund is dependent upon donations. The total amount awarded overall will most likely be between $800,000 to $1 million. However, that is a variable amount, and it is at the discretion of the Adjutant General. So that overall amount, is variable and hasn't been solidified at this point, but the estimate is between $800,000 to $1 million.
Okay. Next question, what is a vendor number and is it the same as an EIN?
It is not the same. A vendor number is a Commonwealth specific number that you will need to obtain in order for the Commonwealth to disperse funding to you. There is guidance in the grant guidelines specific to how to obtain that number and where to obtain that number. You can certainly reach out on the side and we can give you additional details, but the information in the guidelines is pretty specific and clear on exactly where and how to get that information.
Okay, next up, what are the specifics about the certification needed for mental health treatment or evaluation?
We would need documentation showing that you have that certification. We don't have a specific template or required document per se, but any supporting documentation to have to justify, yes, we offer this service and here are the credentials to support that.
Okay, and then the last question that I'm tracking here, to preface it, we provide foot care and new footwear for veterans impacted by homelessness. Is it too big of a stretch to use the transportation priority area? Walking is their primary mode of transportation.
You would definitely have to provide support and justification in the application to justify how that would be, how you feel that would fall under the transportation. It would all be relative to how many details and the supporting information is provided in that application.
All right. And then Jen, if you could please just reiterate the email address, the best way to get in touch with you. And if you could also please post that in the chat.
Certainly, I will post that in the chat. It is the resource account, and I can actually go back here to the slide so that you all can see. It is the RA-MV Vet Trust Fund at pa.gov. It is located in multiple places on in the grant guidelines, as well as on the bottom of the application cover page, page 1 of the application. It's listed there as well. This is the best place to reach me. I do monitor this resource account daily.
Great. Thanks, Jen. And then would you prefer people to, if they have any questions and want to pose them, if they want to just come off mute, or if you would prefer people to raise their hand and you call on them?
Surely, if you want to raise your hand, we'll call on you. That way we aren't jumping at multiple people at once. Cody, I saw your hand was up. You are currently on
Hi.
mute.
No, I got you. Just following up on the mental health question. We do not have certified therapists on staff. However, we do work with like Safe Harbor. We're program partners with the University of Pitt, Peru. Rick knows about us. Vet Center, Erie County VA, we're program partners with all these, and we develop our own surveys, collect our own data, et cetera. And it revolves around horticultural therapy, which we've had a ton of success with. So getting letters from those different organizations be enough, or would you require to actually have a certified licensed therapist on our staff?
No, not at all. Provide,
Okay, cool.
including those, letters of support, information from those other partners. That's extremely helpful. I would strongly encourage you to include all that with the grant application.
Absolutely. Now, we're currently developing new surveys and going to collect new data with Pitt. It might be very, very short-term data by the time I need to submit this, but I do have 2 sets of data on crisis level patients. Not necessarily veterans though, but I equate crisis level patients with veterans anyway because of all the statistics.
Surely, yes. All of the data that you have that you can include, I strongly encourage you to include that in your application narrative, because it's
Okay.
the more details that are included, the better to support, justify performance measures.
Yep.
And another item that's important for everyone to know is how you plan to sustain these programs and services. If you are awarded funding, how you will sustain that once the grant funding ends, because it is essentially a yearly grant. So those are all key details that I would strongly encourage you to include.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all, ma'am. Last question. I don't know if you talked to Mimi or if you know who Mimi is. I know Rick does, but I was talking PA Troops to Tractor, PA Vets to Ag. Because honestly, I qualify under food and mental health, but Mimi felt like I'd have a better chance applying under the mental health than trying to fit both of them into a grant. How do you feel about that?
That honestly would be your preference. You can split, and I'm glad you brought that up. That is a good point to make. You have the ability to submit, and this is for all of you. You can submit more than one application if you have 2 projects that are completely non-related or separate or fall under different priority areas. You can either incorporate them both into one application and say, these are 2 focus areas that we have, and here are the details to support those. Or you can submit 2 applications, but it's very important to remember the maximum award can only ever be 40,000 or 50,000 for all, no matter how many applications submitted. So it would either be split 20/20, 30/10, whatever you feel would be most appropriate. You do have that ability as well. So that would be really up to what you feel is the most important focus and where you feel the grant funding could be best utilized.
Well, the reason I asked Mimi is because it's the same thing. If we get this second round of funding, we're going to have the largest indoor grow op in the tri-state area. I'm in Erie. So the grow op, growing the food and selling the food on site at a farmer's market, and then hiring vets and providing horticultural therapy for soldiers and sailors, Erie Vet Center, blah, blah, blah. It's all one thing.
Yeah,
Different components, but one thing.
sure. Yeah, and that may be, you may want to then incorporate it all into one application and support that, with all of those details. That really is a decision. I unfortunately can't direct you in either way, but that was something that you do have options there on how you would want to, if you want to just do one focus or split it. That's really up to you, but providing those details and support are the most important thing.
Beautiful. You've been a great help. Thank you.
We can certainly discuss that further offline too. If you have some other questions, that's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I believe Brian has a question.
Yes, thank you. The gentleman actually asked my initial question dealing with credentials, dealing with behavioral health. But my next question, also, I'm a 501c3, but we also partner with the American Legion Post. Can I actually include that into the application along with a lot of the outreach programs that we have been provided in the area, even though I saw that was only designated for county directors?
I'm not quite sure I'm following. I definitely would encourage you to list any partners that you have. So if you are applying as a 501c3 nonprofit, but you have partnerships with other entities, VSO organizations, maybe even other entities that aren't a 501c3, or that's fine. I encourage you to list all the partnerships that you have, the relationship, how that would really strengthen the service and program that you are offering or will be offering, and all of that. So certainly you can list those partners. Partnerships actually is a piece of the application that we really ask the applicants incorporate and list out. So I would certainly give that information, list that in there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I believe Frank is next.
Yes, thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes, thanks for having me. I had two questions. First, I have 2 years with my nonprofit organization. Is that enough years for me to participate in this program?
It is, yes. As long as you have your 501c3 status, you can still apply.
That's good. And another thing, from that list that I see, like the items that you like, the areas that you have to cover, I'm not on that list. Do I have to? I see 3 items on there. I deal with support, and also I deal with supplying them with items for my nonprofit. On that, so that's 3 items that I think you said earlier. You can have. There's more things that you can do to qualify for this loan. Is that for this grant? Is that accurate?
Your application must fall under one of the priority areas. So there are 5 priority areas under this grant cycle. So your application would have to support at least one of those. You can select more than one. If the services you provide cover more than one priority area, that's fine, but it has to be connected to at least one of those listed priority areas. I know in years past, for those of you who are familiar, we've had an other category. We do not have another category this year. It must fall under one of the priority areas listed. There must be a direct connection there.
Okay, that's good. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. I know the young man that just covered saying that if you have some people that to join your team, but like he was saying about the VFW and American Legion, I'm part of the American Legion, District 1, and we're large. So he answered my question already. So I'm pretty sure I can put them down as a partner.
Certainly, if they are partnering with your services and programs and they are supporting this, you can, include them as a partner and explain how there is a connection there, how they are a partner, how they support your programs and service. You can also attach letters of support from any partnering communities or other entities. So yes, I certainly encourage all of that information to be included.
Thank Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands. John, did you see anything else in the chat?
No, no other questions in the chat.
If there is anyone else that has a question, please ask it now. If not, this is the conclusion of the presentation. And like I mentioned, we will post it to the Veterans Trust Fund website, which you can find all that information in the grant package, as well as the resource account where you can reach me. Please send all questions to that account, as I will respond to it as quickly as possible. Yes, Frank.
One more thing. I know you were saying about you can't have a grant open, because I have a grant coming soon. So I have to finish that grant out first before I can start this grant.
That only pertains to this particular Veterans Trust Fund grant. If you have grants from other entities, that doesn't apply. It's only if you have an existing Veterans Trust Fund grant from a prior grant cycle that would prevent you from being eligible for this grant cycle.
That sounds good. Thank you.
You're
I'm
welcome.
good now.
Thank you all so much for joining in on the call today. I hope that we were able to provide some helpful information and answer those questions. We will be posting all of this information to our website, including question and answers. And if you have any additional questions, concerns, aren't able to locate the information, please send a message to that resource account and we will certainly get back to you as quickly as possible. And remember the deadline, November 8th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much and have a great day.